I'm open for a part 2 if this video performs well enough. I'm open for a part 2 if this video performs well enough.
I'm open for a part 2 if this video performs well enough.
Well, here we are again, and believe me, that video definitely performed well enough. It was also really fun reading the comments and seeing people that both agreed and disagreed with me, showing that my opinion is just one of many among the infinite reaches of the internet. Now, what did I say this was going to be about? Like how this game could have set up for the return of Demise and Fee. Alright, that. Now, have I gotten a better grasp on how that stuff could have worked? Well... So the reason I said that these characters could have returned is because given the ending of Skyward Sword, the spirits of both of these characters reside in the Master Sword, and since the Master Sword breaks at the start of Tears of the Kingdom, it makes sense that these characters could break free and play their own role in this game. Though upon further inspection, I'm honestly questioning whether or not I would want these characters in the game. In the case of Fee, I honestly think the game already represents her in the most fitting way. As I said in the last video, a character like Fee who stops to advise you every 2 minutes would really take away from the feeling of freedom and exploration that this game gives. So I feel like the Master Sword glowing with the same sound effects from Skyward Sword would be the most fitting, showing that she's still alive even if everyone else only sees her as the Master Sword. Well done, game! And now for the original Demon King. How would Demise fit into this? Well, the more I thought about it, I don't know if he would. Not only have I had a tough time figuring out what he could have done in this game, but adding him on top of Fee and on top of the other sages from Ocarina of Time that I wished could have returned, it felt like the picture I was painting was too built on nostalgia baiting, and that's the exact opposite of what I want. Every Zelda game up to this point has been able to stand on its own. Even in this game, the references to Breath of the Wild story are kept to an absolute minimum, showing that Tears of the Kingdom has its own story to tell that doesn't rely on other games in the series, including its predecessor. Here's the thing, though. Tears of the Kingdom isn't just another Zelda game. It's the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. We literally knew this game as sequel to Breath of the Wild for 3 years, and with that type of marketing, this should be a sequel that acknowledges and builds off the original. And did that happen? Well, yes and no. In Breath of the Wild, you play in an unknown world. It's a world that Link has forgotten, and in turn, the people have forgotten him. Yeah, you come across a few people who know his story, which trigger the main quests, but for the most part, this ain't the Legend of Link, so normal NPCs won't be remembering what he did 100 years ago. But Tears of the Kingdom changed that. It's never stated exactly how much time has passed since Breath of the Wild, but given certain statements and how a few characters have grown, it's definitely been at least a couple of years. And as we find out through exploring the map, Link and Zelda have been pretty busy. By reading Zelda's journal in Link's Ateno village house, we discover that she and Link have been using this time to rebuild the kingdom, and their efforts haven't been in vain, as now people throughout Hyrule know who they are and what they've done. One of my favorite little details in Tears of the Kingdom was hearing normal NPCs mention Link by name and treating him like a friend. It shows that Link has been meeting new people, making friends, and making it so that he's now in a place where he belongs. It created a feeling that wasn't present in Breath of the Wild, a feeling that told me that even though Zelda was gone, I was no longer alone. But on the other hand, this game didn't explain the origins of the Calamity when I really feel like it could have. So looking at the footage from trailers and noticing the gloom billowing off Ganondorf's body, my theory was that Calamity Ganon is the embodiment of the gloom that leaks out of Ganondorf's seal, becoming powerful enough to gain a physical form every century or so. Now this is still my headcanon, but according to Ganondorf's profile, the seal only started weakening when Calamity Ganon got loose 100 years prior. But what exactly does that mean? Does this mean that Calamity Ganon has nothing to do with Ganondorf? We know that what we saw in Breath of the Wild wasn't the first incarnation of Calamity Ganon, so why didn't the seal start weakening after the first one? We know that Ganondorf came before the first one, as it was stated that the first Calamity came after Hyrule had already been established. Meanwhile, Ganondorf came as the kingdom was still finding its footing. Or was Ganondorf himself supposed to be the first Calamity? That can't be the case, since it was quite clear that the Master Sword had a place in sealing the first Calamity, and we didn't see it during flashbacks of the Imprisoning War. So when did the Master Sword come into play? When the Master Sword finds its way to Zelda, are there now 2 Master Swords in this timeline? We know that there can be 2 of the same thing, since Zelda's Secret Stone is Rauru's Secret Stone, and they're both shown together. How far down the road are the Ancient Hero and Divine Beasts? This game clearly presents Ganondorf as a bigger threat than Calamity Ganon, but if that's the case, then why were the Divine Beasts built for Calamity Ganon and not Ganondorf? Maybe the Sheikah didn't have the technology yet, but the Zonai technology is on full display. I think you could have done something with that. So you probably get the point. This game's lore builds off of Breath of the Wild's in a way that leaves me with more questions than answers. I could probably keep talking about this stuff, but we'd probably keep going around in circles. Let's move on to another topic of discussion. I really like Sonia as a character. Since we've never actually seen the Queen of Hyrule before, she definitely makes a good first impression. For one thing, I love how her relationship with Rauru is portrayed, being one of genuine affection, but they're never portrayed as too lovey-dovey with each other. I also love how she serves as a new mother figure for Zelda, who never got to spend too much time with her own mother. For the role she has, she serves it really well. I just wish that role gave her a bit more involvement, since we just see her in a few memories, she's really nice, and then she dies. Well, that's unfortunate. I feel like it should have been way harder to kill Sonia than that. I mean, she has control over time. I'm sure she could have done something to avoid getting stabbed. Or punched. I don't know, it's not really clear what Ganondorf does to her. Though even without her power, you're telling me that she couldn't hear this Goliath of a man sneaking up behind her? I feel like she's better than that. But you know what? She dies here. Fine. Well then why can't we meet her spirit at some point in the game? If Rauru could do it, why can't she? There could be some really interesting encounters that we could have with her. Maybe she could enhance the recall ability, or maybe there could be a flashback that shows her using her power to create the Ocarina of Time. That'd be cool, and serve as another way to tie this game to previous Zelda games, as I said in the last video. Now there's one more thing I'd like to touch on with Sonia, and this applies to Rauru as well. Where's their kid? I mean, they had to have had a child before Sonia died, otherwise this whole thing goes up in smoke since Zelda is supposed to be their descendant. Yeah, it's never stated that they don't have a kid, but come on, man. Really? For all the times that they directly confirm they're related by blood, they should have at least showed us that they're capable of even having descendants. What I think would have been the funniest thing ever is if Sonia was introduced to us as pregnant, has a child in the later memory, and names her Zelda after the Zelda who traveled back in time. Things would have come full circle. This seems like a pretty obvious plot hole to me, but it might not even be real, because again, it's never stated that they don't have a kid. But I don't want to just settle for that, do you? If we saw that Rauru and Sonia had a child, then not only would it make more sense, but both Rauru and Sonia's deaths would have hit so much harder, knowing that they have a child who's now parentless. So leading up to this game, we were all wondering where Zelda would be, and when it was finally revealed that she was sent back in time to Hyrule's founding, I was a little annoyed that she was relegated to essentially the same role she had in the last game, but was soon caught off guard with the fact that the writers were able to do something new with it. The game actually does a really good job of setting up Zelda's ultimate decision to Draconify, showing that the Master Sword is capable of continuously gaining sacred power, and Zelda possessing the power to do so. A good expansion of her story in Breath of the Wild, and that final memory of her Draconification, oh man, that goes so unbelievably hard. This part of the story is very well done, so credit where credit is due. But on the other hand, this opened up a few other questions, mostly having to do with the scale of Zelda's time power. When you first see this power, she activates it accidentally and gets sent back in time thousands of years. Well geez, this power must really be something if it's capable of something like that. As we play through the game and view the memories though, the most we see both Zelda and Sonia using this power is to reverse time on an object by only a few seconds. If that's the case, I think Purah has more control over time with her ability to age and de-age herself. Zelda was born with god power, but Purah, she earned it. So that being said, why was the ability so powerful at the start of the game? Zelda gains full control over recall, but is still nowhere near the level she was at the start of the game, so even if things turned out according to her plan, it still doesn't feel like she was using this ability to its full potential, which wasn't the case for her light power, which was definitely put to good use here. Now let's talk about the ending. As I said before, this game sets up Zelda's draconification really well, and the way it pays off in the end is spectacular. But not everything is great, because as Minoru says, she won't be able to change back. So knowing that, it must be super hard for Zelda to have a happy ending, right?
Actually, it's gonna be super easy, barely an inconvenience.
Yeah, Link just holds up his arm, the spirits of Rauru and Sonia assist him, and it just turns Zelda back. Excuse me, what? Why would he put so much emphasis on Zelda not being able to turn back if she's just gonna turn back with no explanation as to how? You could have at least told us what's happening here and I'd be a little easier on it, but nothing is explained. Oh, and Link somehow got his arm back, so nothing of value was lost. So I guess this proves that if you go adventuring in an abandoned cave and get attacked by an evil warlock, everything will turn out fine. I really don't want to make it seem like I hate this game's story, cause I really don't. But this ending honestly feels like they wrote themselves into a corner and didn't know what to do. I also can't stand it when there are just no consequences for someone's actions, so this scene just didn't sit very well with me, and felt like a happy ending just for the sake of having a happy ending. The stuff I've said so far probably makes it seem like I hate this game's story. While the last video discussed a lot of core story elements, this one is mostly about the little details that just didn't sit very well with me. It seems a little petty that I'm talking about these little details, but little details can pile up quickly, and if not managed, they can be the downfall of a story. Now I will once again stress that this story is not bad. It's simply not how I would have gone about it. And plus, there's way more to a game than just its story. All the gameplay elements here are top notch, and somehow provide the player with even more freedom than in Breath of the Wild. I can say that some of the story beats didn't work well for me, but that doesn't change how magnificent literally everything else is about this game. I've been playing it constantly for 2 months, and I know I'll be playing it for a lot longer.